this could be. Okay, so welcome guys again to the software project management ICT 3201. So in this course content, what we'll be talking about how we can manage a project and what are the things we need to think as a project management, and what sort of challenges that we'll be coming across, what sort of solutions that we're going to be looking into. And there's going to be a lot of interesting things like especially with monitoring, risk management, and communication, all those things. How we're going to do these things in our applications, or what sort of things that we can anticipate when we are developing a software project. Okay, first thing first, we will be discussing in terms of software in this section. Okay, a project can be a general idea. So for example, we can have projects on building a road. Okay, we can have projects on getting the next cure for COVID. Okay, we can have a project on getting the sustainability accomplished to some level. Yes, there are a lot of projects going on in the world, but in our course section, we will be mainly focusing on, or we will be solely focusing on software projects. Okay, so in general, if somebody asks, okay, what is a project? Okay, we can give this definition as what do you understand by a project? Okay, so a project has these qualities, if I may say. So a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to accomplish a unique purpose. Okay, so this is like the general idea. Uh, if you ask anyone uh, with a definition, what is a project? So probably something like this would come up. Okay, so there are like highlighted words in here that is like a temporary, okay, and it's unique. So why I have highlighted these words? These are like the key components, key factors that you might come across within an application. That's why within a project, it it is going to be a temporary endeavor. That means a project is not going to last forever. Okay, a project has its starting period, its running period, or we can a starting period, a development period, a maintenance period, and what we call close down or shut down. Okay, so a project is not going to be there for forever. It has its timeline. Okay, that's why we call it as a temporary endeavor. Okay, so one other thing within a project is a project should undertake to accomplish a unique purpose. Okay, that is the word, a unique purpose. What do you understand by a unique purpose? So everything that we do has a little bit of outcome to it. Okay, so for example, um, if we are building uh, if we are building let's say we are building a well. Okay, we are building a well, we have to dig the soil and we have to remove the construction while we are constructing, the soil will come up, we have to spread it somewhere else, and until we get water we will dig up, and for safekeeping we might add some barriers, okay, around the wall, so accidentally someone won't fall off to that well that we have created. Also we will protect the water source by maybe applying some cement on the bottom, this kind of thing. So there are like, we are doing several tasks, and we are requesting a unique task, unique purpose. In this scenario is getting water out of out of out of the soil, or out of our earth. Okay, so this is the unique purpose. There, you might say, okay, that is not very unique about it, right? Because uh, if I do the same thing in where I live, and if you guys do the same thing that wherever you guys live in, the purpose is gonna be taking water, right? So it's not going to be unique. The application, the accomplishment that we have taken, or the final output of our project is taking water, right? So how can it be unique? Okay, so the uniqueness comes within several things. Okay, so it's not gonna be the 100% match or 100% exact order that we will be undertaking where I dig a well and where you guys are gonna be digging a well. Okay, that's not gonna be the same. For example, when I am digging a well, probably I need to dig, like 160 meters or something like that down the hole. Okay, so if you guys are living from somewhere near a water resource, you might find water within few meters. Where I have to dig 100 meters. You guys will find something like within 10 or 20 meters. Okay, some even may get lucky, and under 6 feet or 7 feet, you will find water. So the endeavor, the amount of work that I have to do and someone else have to do is going to be totally different. Okay, it's going to make the project unique. Of course, the end goal is kind of like the same, taking water, but it's going to be unique the way we execute it, right? The way we are going to execute it, the equipment that we're going to be trying out. Okay, and the amount of output that we're going to produce. So given by these various assumptions, various things, what will happen is it's gonna be totally different uh, thing that we're gonna be doing uh, in terms of accomplish our goal. Okay, so so you guys can see the uniqueness is in there in every project that we are working on. Okay, let's apply these to let's apply these things, these techniques to what we call in our uh, software development. Okay, how and when unique software is developed? What sort of things that makes a software unique, a project unique? Say, for example, let's assume that we'll be taking on a project where we'll be developing a social media application. Okay, so we have some social media application right now. There are a lot of applications that do the same, right? We have X, formerly known as Twitter. We have Facebook, and we have Instagram, now TikTok. So all of these things are social applications or social media applications. So if you look at these things, we have even though we categorize those things as social media applications, they have different use cases, they have different purposes. Okay, but they have the uniqueness, they have similarities sometimes. Okay, but it's not going to be always the case. So for example, if you take uh, two similar products, let's say, for example, let's say I don't know, TikTok and YouTube. So both are like doing the same thing, right? They will be they'll be helping us to share videos. Okay, so both are web and mobile applications are available. So basically, their selling point or their uniqueness would not be can or we can't characterify those things are two unique products by looking at what they deliver. Okay, their delivery is they're giving us short videos or whatsoever, but there is no uniqueness if you look at on the surface. But if you look at how they have done it, what are the things that they are doing, then you will find that there is a uniqueness to each and every software that we are using today. Okay, so for example, the language tech. Okay, let's say for developing TikTok. I'm not sure but this is 100% true, or maybe these are things like I'm making up. So they might be using web application technologies like Java or JavaScript. Okay. On the other hand, YouTube, they might be using some other web application frameworks like, let's say, PHP or Django, this kind of things. So by using a different technical tech stack or technical stack, what will happen? This product will be unique. Okay, so it's not going to be the same thing that we see every day. That's not going to be the same thing that you will even though the payload, the actual end product is kind of like the same, but what we are trying to accomplish is completely different. Okay, so unique purpose have different things into it. Okay, so we need to make sure every product that we're going to be developing is going to be having a unique purpose to it. Okay, it's going to be unique on some way. Okay, maybe development, the content delivery system, whatever. So every project is unique because of the construction or the technologies that we are using, how we're going to be developing. It's going to have a unique purpose to it. Okay, so remember, when you are developing a project, okay, so it's going to be it's going to serve a unique purpose to it. It has a unique purpose tail to it, and it's going to be a temporary investment. Okay, don't think that everything is going to be forever. When we are developing a project, okay, there might not be, okay, we'll start this project today, we will develop for the next month, and we will end it for like within uh, we will be going out, or we will be phasing out in 10 years. Okay, that is not how a project works. Sometimes it takes time to develop. It takes time to get things going on. Then at the end, on some time, we have to decide, okay, we're going to continue it or we're going to shut it down. So it's going to be uh, going to be replaced. Okay, and it's going to be put into hold. Okay, so the temporariness coming in a software project on various reasons. Okay, so you guys need to know what makes a software project temporary. Okay, so you might think, oh, no, software projects are like forever. We are gonna have it forever. It's not gonna be something that we're gonna phase out. No, every software that we use, it's gonna phase out someday. The main reason is the advancement of technology. Okay, so especially you guys know the hardware and software. Both of these are like bound to each other. So if you even don't think, if you are if you are um, if you are like improving your hardware, and uh, when the hardware is moving at a rapid pace, then what will happen is you will have to adapt to that. Okay, then you have to move on. Let me give you an example. If you guys know, I think probably there are some processor architectures. So we have the old days, like when we were kids, I'm not sure about now. When we were kids, we had a processor architecture which is from Intel, which called X8, X32. Okay, before that there was X16. Even that, for me, it was a drastic move. I haven't seen much of those computers, but um, X32 or 32-bit computers was a thing at the time we were starting. So 32-bit computers, they have different way of understanding, different length of getting instruction into the CPU. So we can feed up to 32 bits of instruction. So the processor is capable of handling 32-bit of instruction set. And when the times moves on, when we are using 32-bit computers, we had all sort of things like we had operating system, we had software which runs on that, we had like small games, likewise it goes on. And after a few times, after a few years, we got the new architecture, the 32-bit architecture processor was fine. Then we got the 64-bit architecture, we call x86 underscore 64. So we had a new architecture called 64-bit processors. Okay. So when the hardware introduced the 64-bit instruction, the software which was running 32-bit, of course, they could be running on a 64-bit machine after some tweaking, because obviously a 64-bit processor can take in 32-bit instructions as well. Okay, but not the other way around, because in a 64-bit processor, you need to have a say you can actually give a 64-bit long instruction, but the limitation for 32-bit is 32-bit of instruction. So anything that is running on a 64-bit cannot be run on 32-bit machine or a processor which has 32-bit. So that was a change, right? A drastic change, if I say. So in that scenario, what happened was any software that was running at that time had to be adapted. Okay, either they say, okay, we are not going to support 64-bit, we are done, we are not going to give that support. Or they can have, okay, we will be adapting, we will take our software and convert it into more compatible version of 64-bit. Okay, or they can say, okay, if this is running on 32-bit, sorry, our software is 32-bit only, and we are not planning to go with 64-bit instruction support. So you can use the 32-bit as long as you like, since 64-bit can handle 32-bit instruction. So we won't worry about that. So you guys see the projects which we need to evolve further, or the software projects that need to continue, they have adapted to the new processing system. So they have moved on. The software projects that thought, okay, this doesn't make any sense, we are not going to go and move ahead, and they stopped using the 32. They have not developed a 64-bit version for that. So in a scenario like that, you guys see a software in that scenario, the software that did not make through was a temporary endorsement. Okay, it's no longer going to be working on a 64-bit version. Okay, so same thing happens. There were 32-bit operating system, 16-bit operating system, and after a few times they were gone. Okay, now if you guys know, we have new processor architectures which is on the rise. You guys know that with the rise of mobile phones and mobile chip manufacturers, we have a new processor architecture called ARM. Okay, ARM architecture is like one of the most popular architectures that you will see in mobile phones. Okay, so you will guys see the smartphones industry almost dominated by ARM processors. Nowadays, we have even laptops which are powering ARM processors. So if, for example, the new MacBook series is powered using ARM processors. No longer Intel is providing that. Okay, so everyone who is been using Intel processors, now they can switch to another one. So like Apple has made the move, now Microsoft is moving on, and the list goes on. People are moving from separate processor architecture to a different one. So while they are moving, they need to make sure the software that they have supported, either they should work on ARM, okay, the instruction set is totally different, they have to move it to a different processing architecture, or they have to make the use of the temporary endover. That means they're going to say, okay, we are not going to support ARM. We'll just only go for we will go with x64 or 32 64-bit architecture. If something goes on, we will just stop it, or we won't no longer support it. At that time, we can say the cycle of the software, it's going to be temporary, it's no longer working, and it's going to be something what we call terminated project. Okay, so you guys can see, don't think a software will be there forever. It's going to be temporary. Okay, everything that we develop, a project that we take in, it's going to be gonna go some way or another, because of the rise of technology and its differentiations. Anything, a project would go silent or go fade out in some way or another. Let me give another examples. Like if more you guys will be probably known to operating systems which is in Windows, I hope. So Windows has Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows XP, then Windows 8, and the list goes on. Okay, now you guys can see it's only going, as I can remember, they only support Windows 11, Windows 10, and Windows 8 as I know. I'm not really in touch with those things, but operating system like Windows 98, Windows XP, so those projects are no longer there. It's not going to be supported. Of course, you can use these projects. Okay, if you have a very old machine, you want to run this, you can have Windows XP, and it will work perfectly fine. And but any other future development, future improvements, that won't be a thing that will happen within the application. Okay, so temporary is a keyword, unique is a keyword. Remember why a project is getting temporary. Remember why a unique purpose is coming from a project. Okay, so that's a must in a project. All right. Any questions up until this, guys? You guys have any questions before we proceed on? Okay, not. Let's move on. So let's see these. Let's see these primary attributes of a project. So these, if you take a project, in a software project, especially in this case, these attributes can be seen. Okay, these are like key components, key things that you will see in a project. Okay, so first thing that we have actually elaborate on that, a unique purpose. Okay, of course, every software project that we'll be developing should have a unique purpose. What it's trying to resolve, what's the difference than the other things. Okay, so for example, uniqueness might come. Okay, we are having the same thing. Yes, we are doing the same thing as X and Y application, but we are much faster. Okay. The X application takes 10 minutes, the Y application takes 5 minutes, but we are doing in 2 minutes. Okay, our task is executed in 2 minutes. So that is a unique thing. Okay, not other applications have that uniqueness. So we are unique. Okay, so someone say, okay, we have an application which is using these technologies, but we have incorporated AI to it. Okay, now we are doing it in AI level. Okay, so that is giving a unique purpose. Okay, so that's kind of a selling point of a project. And as we mentioned, it's going to be temporary. The temporariness comes from, as I mentioned earlier, when the application is changing, in terms of hardware and the environments, given anything, a project is temporary. It's gonna have starting time, living time, maintenance, and it's gonna be fade away, or we will say it's gonna be going away. And the next thing that we are talking about resources. Okay, any project that we are going to be developing need resources, resources put into it, often from various areas. So what are the resources in a software or a project manager? So I need you guys input. Okay, put it in chat, or you guys can talk, or you guys can raise your hand and speak. So what are the different resources that you have seen in terms of developing a software? Okay, this is like a general question. Okay, what are the resources that you need in order to develop a software? So let's hear it in the meeting chat, or you guys can raise your hand and talk. Okay, give me some resources that you think, okay, when we are developing a project, okay, we can't develop a project without these resources. Okay, what are those? Just let me know in terms of software project. Okay, so we are not building a house, we are not digging a well. Okay, we are talking about software project. Okay, in terms of software projects, what are the things that you guys think? What are the resources that we need? Yes, let's hear it from you guys. Tell me. Gayatri, Pavin, Isuru. I'm not picking up names, I'm just saying. What are your thoughts? What are the things that you need? What are the resources? Yes, okay, we got different one. Yes, programming languages. Yes, that is a resource that we need. Good one. Thank you, Isuru. That to mention human resources. Yes, we need people, human resources in order to do that. Hardware, yes. Yes, we need hardware. So in terms of hardware, we can categorize everything, a mouse to a keyboard to a monitor. Yes, servers, everything. Yes. What else we need? What are the other resources we need? Development environment, Visual Studio, development environments, Visual Studio. Yes. Development environments. Yes, that is something that we need. That means what we call normally something like Visual Studio is what we call like IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Yes. Visual Studio. Yes, we need certain softwares. Okay, we'll categorize everything as softwares. So in order to develop a software, we need other softwares, right? Yes, good. Yes. What are the other resources that we need? Yes. Give your thought. Okay, there is no good answer or bad answer. Okay, as long as you think, yes, this make more sense. Let's have it. So we have hardware resources. We need human resources. Yes. and we need software resources. Okay, human, hardware, software. So what are the other things that would need? Okay. What else we would need? Okay, so we have hardware. Okay, we have the laptop, we have the all the software incorporated into it, and we have a person to start the programming or start the project. Okay, and yes, one other thing is capital. Yes, we need capital in the sense we need money. Okay, so everything is going to be not going to be free, of course. Yes, if you want to buy hardware, we need capital. If you want software, we need capital. Okay, same goes to human resources. Unless you have some um, some charity going on, you need to survive. So human resources is the most hardest thing in terms of managing and all. But yes, capital is needed for everything. Yes, good, very good. What are the other things that you guys think in a software we need in order to succeed? What are the resources that we need? One key important thing you might need. Say, for example, you have the software, you have the money and everything, but you do not have internet, or you do not have electricity to continue. Okay, what is that requirement? What is the resource that we need in terms of that? Okay, so if you guys can remember last, I don't know, knowledge. Yes, knowledge. Okay, knowledge is some resources. It is a resource that I would go with something like that will tag along with human resources and software resources. Knowledge, yes, knowledge is a resource that we need, but it's gonna go under somewhere around human or software. The one I talked right now, I think we have faced the same issue like 1 or 2 years ago. Okay, we had our laptops, we had our capital, we had our hardware and everything was there, but electricity was not there. So what's gonna happen? We are missing a key resource. What was that resource? We normally call these things as, so internet was not there, electricity was not there, then it's going to be a problem, right? What is that? We normally call these resources as infrastructure. Okay, we need the infrastructure to run everything. Okay, it's not related to hardware, but infrastructure as a whole, we need those things in order to work. Okay, so that's good. Your valuable, thank you for your valuable inputs. Okay, yes. So we will shape these things out. Okay, we will look into each and every resources that we're going to be having, and what is the uniqueness of these resources, and what sort of scarcity is, what sort of risk involving in these resources. Okay, so fair warning, out of all the resources that we have listed out here, okay, the most annoying one, the most hard one to manage is gonna be, what do you guys think? Is it gonna be hardware resources that we can't manage? Or is this capital? What is the most most troubling one? Everyone has everything involved with a risk and a trouble. But what do you guys think? What is the most troublesome one in this resource section that we can't handle? Yes. From my experience, it's always human resources. Okay, it's really hard. Okay, when it is coming to a project, okay, managing a project, you can, of course, there is, as I mentioned, everything has a risk attached to it, okay. A capital, if you go down with no capital, there is risk, there's a resource scarcity. If you don't have the perfect hardware, then there is a risk, there is risk incorporate to that. But out of all of these things, the most most annoying thing is human resources. So human resources management is a little bit harder, but we'll see how we can incorporate those things, how we can manage human resources in a project. Okay. All right. So we need resources in order to work. So building a software, most of the time building a software in our applications, we need hardware, of course. If you are developing a software, you need machines that you need to run, okay? Maybe a laptop, a desktop, hardware. Say, for example, sometimes special hardware is required. Or let me give an example. Let's say we want to develop an AI application, okay, which we leverage AI to do some things. For example, maybe a generate image, okay, understand the context. You guys know the uh, things that AI can do, okay? Especially if you have used softwares like Copilot, ChatGTP, these kind of things are like hot topic these days, okay? So the AI need special, AI is not gonna run out of thin air, right? If you are developing an AI application, the most important piece of hardware that you would need is a GPU, or we call graphical processing unit. GPU is one of the most important thing in order to make an AI application. So some projects require special resources based on the software that we're going to be developing. If you are incorporating an AI, yes, a GPU is a must. It is not something like, you should have it in your local machine or something like that. Sometimes you can even use that kind of service out in the internet. Okay, you can host a GPU service, or you can rent out a GPU in internet, and you have to pay only for that. It's not the it's not like it is avoidable, it is needed. Okay, so in that scenario, we have to come up in a way. Either we get a GPU, or we have to rent it, or we're going to be using it somewhere else. So it's gonna be a thing that we need to use, or we need to know when we are developing an application, when we are developing something, we need to acquire the resources we needed, especially hardware, those kind of things. So another thing that you guys mentioned is the software. Okay, so developing a software, most of the time we need a few things. Especially we have mentioned like something like development environments, like Visual Studio, and we need something like programming languages. Yes, oftenly those are needed things. So for example, if we are developing, let's say we are developing a mobile application, we are developing a mobile application for an we are developing a mobile application for iOS. Okay, you know, Apple phones. So we need to develop an application for that. So in that scenario, we have quite a lot of restriction per se. So in terms of software, you need a software called Xcode. Okay, the Xcode is the most popular way of developing iOS application. So that is an integrated environment where you need to run the IDE, the IDE for developing iOS application. Most of the time it is called Xcode. Okay.
But the problem arises, to run Xcode, you need a Mac operating system, or we call Mac OS. Okay, so we need Xcode to run Xcode. We need Mac, and to run Mac OS, you need Mac hardware. Okay, so you guys see the resource is chain in that scenario. So we need special softwares. Sometimes these things are coming with a cost. If it is open source and free, of course you can use it. But sometimes these software need to be purchased. Okay. In the case of iOS development, Xcode is free. macOS is also free, but the hardware which is coming from, sorry, that's going to be a little bit expensive. Everything is built on top of that. Okay, let's take another example of software. Let's say I want to develop an Android application. Okay, Android software application. In this scenario, what you need is a software that is needed to develop is Android Studio. Okay, Android Studio is the primary way or the main way of developing an Android application. Okay, so we need to have Android Studio. Okay, in order to run Android Studio, of course, you can use either operating system, either Windows, Mac, or Linux, whatever the whatever you are comfortable with, you can run as long as you have the hardware requirements met. Of course, you can run those things. So most of the time, the cost for the operating system is really less. So you just need you just need an ordinary machine, then you can install the operating system, whatever your choice, you can install Android Studio, and you can start developing. Okay, so the software resources are there depending on what you're going to be doing. The hardware resources are there. Hardware resources are going to be a factor what you're going to be developing on. So make sure your whatever the software that you're going to build, whatever the project that you're going to be working on, make sure you have good knowledge on what are the resources that that is going to be using on. Okay. Next resource type that we need to talk about is the, of course, capital. Okay, so nobody is gonna give you guys hardware for free. Yes, nobody is gonna give you guys proprietary software for free. Okay, and nobody is gonna feed the people who are involved in this application for free. And nobody is gonna give you electricity, internet, and all those utilities for free. Okay, it's involved with a cost. Everything that we're gonna be doing is involved with a cost. So in a scenario like that, what we're going to do is we need to incorporate cost factors into our project. Okay, so somebody has to make some, somebody has to pour in some money in order to make some money, to gain some profit. So in this scenario, and the next point actually, we should have a primary sponsor and a primary customer. Okay, so there should be someone who is willing to pay us. They are gonna be taking care of the cost factors, the cost resources of our application. So we need to make sure somebody is willing. Okay, I will invest $1,000 in this project. Okay, and once those $1,000 is met, we have a project. Okay, and some people might say, okay, I don't I'm not going to develop a software for open, but a customer might come and ask, hey, I have a problem in my organization. I have a problem where it is coming to, let's say, I have a problem in my marketing section. Okay, I need a marketing tool or marketing software or a project need to be developed. So in the first occurrence, what we had was we have an idea. We are asking sponsors to chip in. Okay, I have the next big idea for developing a world-great mobile application. So others can chip in. Okay, they will say, okay, I will give you $1,000 to continue this. I will fund you this amount of money so you can continue. You can buy new hardware. You can buy everything that you need. This kind of thing is what we can expect from a primary sponsor. Okay, so somebody is going to sponsor for your effort. Okay, the other one is the customer. He or she would come and say, okay, the customer would say, I have a problem in here. I need to find a solution to overcome this, and what sort of solution that you can give. Okay, so the project might start from there, from the customer's requirement. Okay, so the primary sponsor or a primary customer is a fact or something that you will see within the application. Okay. All right. So next thing that what we will do is we will have in here is the uncertainty or the risk factor and everything. So every project that we'll be working on have an uncertainty factor built on top of it. Okay, every project. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's assume we are building a software for a customer, and the customer is asking the customer is asking us to get this project done within 1 month. Okay, and with the all given resources and everything that we have within our organization or the people who are developing the project, we know we can't deliver that within 1 month. Okay, but the customer insists. No, we have to go live with this project in 1 month. Okay, so what we're going to do? So what we're going to say is, okay, if you need this in 1 month, there are going to be risk factors involved. There will be uncertainty involved into this project. So we might need to clarify, or we need to say, okay, if you need this in 1 month, certainly there are things that we might skip. Okay, we might skip going through thorough testing. Okay, we are not be able to completely make this reality within 1 month. So we will skip thorough testing. So it might work, or it might give some weird errors while you are using it. Okay, and sometimes we might say, okay, if you want this within a month, what will happen is we will need to hire more people, right? If you need to get something done, we might need to hire some people and get on board and get this thing 1 month done. Okay, we need to get some already hired people from a different project to this one. Okay, in that scenario, there is most of the time the people would not get the context. Sometimes the languages are different. Somebody is doing Java, this project in JavaScript, and the language difference might come, and they will do errors in a lot of places, a lot of time. So in that scenario, what will happen is we will have to come up with some sort of uncertainty to it. Okay, so it not gonna be, of course, we can plan it 100%, but there is a risk factor on every corner that it might go wrong. Okay, so my personal experience, I know sometimes the uncertainty comes from the customer side as well. The customer would say, okay, I will make this happen. It doesn't matter how much it costs. You do your work. Let's see how it goes. But at the middle of the project, while it was going on, the customer said, "Hey guys, sorry, we don't have enough fund. We have to stop this project." So uncertainty is everywhere. Okay, so we might not be profitable at the beginning. Okay, so then we are going with a loss. And not only cost factors, but also in let's say we are using our latest hardware and software. So now what will happen is some of our hardware is malfunctioning. Okay, it's our machines that we supposed to work on. The machines are broken. For some reason it is not starting. Then what will happen? Okay, we are relying on our hardware. The hardware is not responding. The hardware is not working as expected. So in that scenario, the uncertainty came from one of the resources. Okay, sometimes the cost going away, cost is too high, then it's not gonna work as planned, and some resources are not working. So anywhere, any place in our application can go wrong. Okay, for example, we might have developers, right? We might have QA engineers who are working on the project. It's totally human, a person to get sick. Okay, you can say, okay, while we are working on this project, nobody gets sick. Okay, that is impossible. Everyone, we have priorities. Sometimes we get sick. While we are sick, we can't work, right? As people, no, you can't. So the certain uncertainty is going to be there as a factor into our application. So what we're going to do, what sort of things that we will have to address. So let's see how these uncertainty factors is affecting our application. Why we should keep a clear eye on this uncertainty, and we'll get through how these things are done. Okay. All right. So attributes, remember the unique purpose, temporary, we need resources, we need cost or primary sponsor or somebody who want this, okay, at least who would like to chip in. And there is always going to be uncertainties. Everything that we do is going to come up with uncertainty at some level. Okay. Okay. So next thing, this is like the what do you call? This is the soul of our lecture series or lecture modules. So we will be looking at the constraint. Okay, what are the constraints that limits us our application or project focus? Okay, these constraints, we call these things are like triple constraint of or triple principle of software management. So these are like mostly known to everyone out there. So the constraints that we can be using is bounded to 3. At least these 3 are like the most popular ones. We'll see some other constraints. Okay, but most of the time, if you are looking at a reference, if you are searching about project management, so these 3 constraints will pop up at any time, anywhere. Okay, so what are these 3 constraints that we can be looking into? Okay, the first one is the scope goals. Okay, what sort of scope that we're going to be covering? What are the functionalities that we can give? And the next thing is the time goals. How efficiently, how fast that we can give these things And the last one is the cost goal. How much it would cost us to build this, or how much money that it will need to make the project cost effective. Okay, so this is like what we call the triple constraint. Okay, remember these things as the highest priority of project management. We need to achieve, we need to operate under scope goals. We need to work under time goals, and we need to achieve things under cost goals. Okay, so these three constraints are a little bit, what do you call, have a relationship between each other. Okay, they have a relationship involving each other. So so these things are like not very good working as the three of these things at the same time. Okay, you can't in a project, okay, believe me, you can't achieve these three goals at once. It's really highly unlikely if somebody is achieving this. Okay, so a perfect project would be having all the scope, having all the functionalities and everything achieved, achieve the timeline. Okay, achieve by given timeline, if we can achieve that, and we can manage this, and the cost. Okay, the money that we are including. All these things, all these three constraints are met at once. That is a dream project. Okay, it's not going to be easy. In real life, there is no project, I haven't, at least from my experience, which have these three in aligning with each other. You can achieve two, yes, that is true. You can achieve these two. That means you can give the scope by a given cost. Okay, you can achieve a given scope by given time, but the cost will be changing. Okay, cost goal won't met. So you can have the cost goal and time goal met, but the scope of that project is going to be not met most of the time. Okay, so remember, these three things would not work in a project in a way that all these three constraints are met. Okay, that is impossible. At least as of today, somebody will come up with, okay, we can achieve this constraint without an issue like this in this. As of now, we do not have that kind of thing. Okay, so these constraints, these things change. The scope change when we are developing a software, our scope changes. Okay, so when the scope change, it is going to affect our time goals. Say, for example, let's take the example of building a social media application. Okay, we'll take that one as an example. So our scope, our goal in our application, our scope is, let's say one thing is adding friends, okay, within our application. We need to add friends from one to another. I need to add a friend to my friend list, and this kind of thing. So that's the scope of our project. Okay, that's not the whole one, but at least one scope that we need to achieve. And the time for that achievement, how we can get that scope is done. Let's say we have like 20 hours to complete that. That is the time goal. The scope is adding friends, and the time is 20 hours, and the cost is associated with is, let's say, $100. Okay, to have that functionality, we would invest $100. Okay, so if the scope is fine and the cost is fixed, believe me, the time that it will estimate, it's gonna go up and down. Okay, so even though those two constraints are met, if the scope is fixed, the cost is fixed, and the time, it's not gonna go around like as we expected 20. It's gonna be changing. Why? The reason behind that these constraints are changing, because when we lock into one or two of these goals, the other goal without an issue will be overlapping due to the human nature or the project nature of its. Okay, so we can't satisfy all these three within within a software project, but the only thing that we can do, we have a person, okay, we have a person who is responsible for managing and balancing these three constraints. Okay, that person is what we call a project manager. So the project manager, what he or she is going to be doing is making sure our scope, time, and cost goals are balanced. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, those three cannot be achieved at once within a single project, but we need to balance those things. Okay, so one thing that we need to make sure as a project manager, these goals should be managed. Okay, if they can achieve those three goals at once, that is like the perfect project. But in a world that is not going to be the case, but they can, as a project manager, the responsibility of this person is going to be managing these things. So for example, let's say the scope has changed. Okay, for some reason, when we are developing the social media application, the project, the scope was to add friends. Okay, it's the scope is to add a friend, that is like searching a friend and add it into my list. Okay, so now all of a sudden the client or the testing or the requirement, let's say the button which was in there, let's assume there is a button within that application where is the add button. It was like in yellow. Now we need to be red. Okay. So let's assume that is not a simple task. The changing of color is not a simple task. So the scope has changed. Okay, the one of these three constraints now has affected. The scope has changed. One thing, this change correction can be done. Now we have the scope goal changed. This scope has literally changed from a single request, a single thing, to a smaller, small request to some bigger. So to achieve, the scope is now fixed. The scope is, we need to make sure that's need to be happen. So either we need to change the time goal or the cost goal in order to make the scope goal a reality. Okay, if you think okay, the scope is fine, or it's closely fine, we cannot change the scope. That is like what the user wanted. So we can't change the scope of it. Okay, so in order to achieve this, okay, scope is fixed. Either we need to change the time goal or the cost goal. So we can say, okay, if you're changing that button color, we have two options. We need 30 more minutes in order to complete that. Okay, we need more 32 minutes. Okay, so we have changed one constraint, that is the time constraint. We have changed the time constraint. Okay, 30 minutes more, in the sense we are not going with the initial goal requirement as we expected. Initial goal requirement for the time is, let's say, 24 days. Now, since the color change is here, now we need 24 days and 30 minutes. Okay,
So you can see that one of these changes happen. Okay, in this scenario, the scope changes happen. Since the scope has changed, the time should be changed. In that scenario, what will happen? The cost will be also going high. Okay, because we are putting extra 30 minutes, and that extra 30 minutes somebody have to pay, right? Anybody is not gonna work for 30 minutes for free. So what will happen is it will incorporate with the cost as well. Okay, so you can see the cost of these constraints, or the cost of these the goal of these three constraints, it's gonna differ based on what we are trying to achieve. Okay, so make sure when you are dealing with a constraint, the project manager should decide, okay, are we gonna do that change? Okay, are we gonna change that scope and let the cost and time goes up? Okay, or are we gonna take this into, oh, we say, okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, that doesn't make sense. If you have such feature, what will happen is our time and our cost will be going up, so we will not take that scope into hand. That is the duty of the project managers to decide whether we're gonna go for it or we are not gonna go for it. Okay, we have to balance these things. The project manager is to achieve these three goals in a way that it is not, you know, at the end of this project, nobody is going bankrupt. Okay, so sorry, it's the project manager's responsibility to cover all these three goals. So let's say, for example, the project manager was bad and he have forgotten his duties, and he haven't he has accomplished something, but some of the goals were not attended. For example, the project manager was underestimating the cost goals. Okay, the cost goals were not met. So what will happen? We initially have $1,000 as the project budget. Okay, that is like the cost goal, or we can say the budget of the project. The budget was like $1,000, but due to the changes and everything, and while we are doing the project, the cost was around $1,500. Earlier it was $1,000. Now it is raising up to $1,500. Extra $500 is needed to work with that. Okay, to accomplish what we need. So what we have done is the cost goal was not met. Then what will happen? Somebody has to pay that $500, right? The $500 that extra came on. Okay, we have to manage that. Either we're going to charge the customer more, or either we go with a new subscription plan, or we will gonna absorb it. Sometimes companies need to absorb that amount of time in order to work or survive. Okay, so the project manager should be always aware on the cost goal. Okay, and the time goal. Let's take a time goal example. Say for example, we are developing an application, and it need to be completed within 6 months. Okay, within 6 months of time, the application should be completed. But if you look at the time goals, and given the scope and cost and everything, the time is expected to be finished within 1 year. Okay, so we expected the project should be done within 6 months, but the expected or projected timeline is not 6 months, but 1 year. So double as the amount. The reason behind might be the time goal cannot be accomplished, that developer resources are not there. Okay, we need to hire more developers, and we might need certain hardware. This kind of thing will take some time.
So all the given things, the time goal may not be set. Okay, so we cannot achieve that. So in a project where time goal is not met, then what will happen is it will take more time to market. Okay, we have created the software. Okay, after 1 year, what will happen is the software is having less competition. If we created a very competitive mobile application, if somebody beats us to it, that means someone else has done the change, or the product is out there. We won't get that much of traction. In that scenario, what will happen is our project our project is not within the timeline. Somebody else get the best out of it. Okay, someone else might take the idea, and the time factor has not met, so they are losing on that end. Okay, so make sure time goals are set. We will be finishing this project, and we will starting this project. During that time, we have to make sure, okay, we will be constantly looking how much tasks have been completed, how much tasks that can be arranged, or someone to work on, this kind of thing. Okay, so the time goal is one of the most important thing. And yes, we talked about scope as well. The scope goals need to be built. Otherwise, we might be giving most of the time a project that is underdeveloped. That means we say we give um, things like let's say we are giving the scope X and Y. Okay, for some reason we couldn't make that, and we only have X, and then what will happen? What's gonna what's gonna be like underestimation of what we have trying to develop. Okay, so we promised to give them X, Y, and Z. We were able to give only X. The stakeholders, the people would get angry. Some of the time we get mad, because you promise this in this time, now you are telling it is not going to be met. Okay, well, it's going to be waste of our time and money that we have spent on. Okay, so the project manager should have a unique ability to make sure, okay, we are giving everything in our scope, we are taking the time that we have allowed, and we are managing the cost that we are allocated with. Okay, so the project manager has a huge role controlling these two constraints and delivering the project as it is. Okay, so these are the three constraints. We will be looking in much more detail about these three constraints, how these are like how these two things or three things will cross each other, and what is the after effect of these things. As a high level, these are the three constraints. And yes, as I mentioned, those are like the famous three constraints of a project. But there are other constraints that we need to work on as well. That is the factors of such as quality and the risk and the benefits. Okay, so these are like, not the ones that you will see in terms of uh, basic triple constraint, but these constraints are playing other roles in here as well. So as a person, a project manager, the person who is responsible for managing these three constraints should also
have constraints on these things as well. The quality of the project, quality of the project. Okay, so you guys know, so for example, it says without thing like we know, let's say for example, let's say Japanese cars. Okay, we know the Japanese cars, it's built on the top quality it have. Okay, without a doubt, we know if you want to buy a quality car, then you would definitely we would go with something like a top quality Japanese car, right? So that's kind of thing we need to make sure. Okay, a project manager is giving within the project the quality of our application. Okay, so we will look into how a project manager can manage quality within an application. Okay, so the next thing is other concern is risk. As I mentioned earlier, every project that we are doing is involved with risk of having at some point. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, a risk can be failure of a hardware, failure of software, failure of a stakeholder. Anything that we come across will have a cost risk factor built on top of it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we will explain. We will look in how a project manager would handle this risk. Okay, if you know there are going to be risk, okay, we need to make sure. Okay, how we gonna handle it? How we gonna mitigate it? Okay, risk is gonna be there. Risk is always there. We can't avoid it, but what we can do is we can mitigate it. We can reduce it. Okay, so if you know what are the risks that we're going to be facing on, then we can have a plan for it. Okay, so for example, risk is losing our hardware. We have a machine that is used by the programmers, and all of a sudden the risk is losing one of these hardware. One of the machines is not working anymore. Okay, so how are we going to mitigate this? How are we going to reduce this? Of course, one way of reducing is to have a backup laptop. Okay, we have a backup laptop where we can use, if one of those goes wrong, we can use one of those backup laptops and work through it. So as you guys can see, we can mitigate risk, but we need what we call a risk management plan, or we need to handle this risk in order to work with that. And the next thing is benefits. Okay, so we have different type of benefits for each and every stakeholder within application. By the way, a stakeholder is, if you don't know, a stakeholder is a person or a party that is interested in some way to an application. Okay, we'll discuss stakeholders in a little bit in more detail. Right now, any stakeholder that is within the project have benefits to their own. Okay, so so the benefits should be met as much as the stakeholders need it. So they need to be profitable. Okay, so if we play the application in a good way, then what will happen is the stakeholders will get the benefit out of it. Okay, financial benefits or maybe recognition. Okay, sometimes they have a recognition. Okay, that if that company is making a software, you don't have to worry about it. That's kind of beneficial recognition is going to be beneficial. And there are some things like, okay, if that person is working on that project and it's going to be delivered on time, okay, that is like quality beneficial. And if somebody is working on that project, of course, that is going to be cost effective. That's kind of thing is there when we are working with the application. Okay. So we will talk in much detail about these things in upcoming lectures. Okay. So the next thing in a brief, what we need to do is, so what do you understand by project management? Okay, so all the things that we have talked so far. So what do you understand by project management? Okay, so we can summarize this as project management is a practice of using knowledge, skills, tools, and other techniques to complete a series of tasks to deliver value and achieve a desired outcome. Okay, so this is like the textbooks version of a project management. So you guys can, put it in your mind. Okay, if within your examination, if somebody asks what is project management, there you go. This is like the textbooks version of that answer. But remember, it is not the word that make no sense. It's the understanding of what it is. Okay, that's what we are trying to go through. Okay, so project management is a practice of using the knowledge. Okay, so we need to know the knowledge of how a certain thing is done, what sort of things is going to be working, and the skills, what are the abilities that we have, tools like what we have used in our applications like software, what are the software tools, what are the hardware tools, and techniques. Okay, we need certain techniques to complete. Okay, we will talk about different architectures and patterns on all those things that to become. And to complete a series of tasks, okay, software development is not like a one big big board of bulb. Okay, it's going to be step by step smaller tasks which we will be working in, and it will deliver a value and achieve a desired outcome. Okay, so we will use these everything, knowledge, skill, tools, and techniques, and practicing these things, okay, to manage and come with the desired outcome. Okay, so a project manager is, or project management is practice of accomplishing something with knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques. Okay, so that is like the textbook version of it. All right. Next thing, what we'll do is we will discuss further things as we go along. So any questions up until this point, guys? You have anything that need to be clarified? Yes, anything that you guys need to know? Okay. Not, I will stop recording. Let's see.